All right. So Mark Carney, the finance guy who went from central banking superstar to Trudeau's now replacement in chief, is shaking things up in Ottawa as our 24th prime minister. He's been already tossing out old ministers, like someone moving into a new apartment and finding weird, dusty shit from the previous tenant. Carney's taken over again, Canada's 24th prime minister. He decided that Mark Miller and a whole roster of the other Trudeau era liberals, 18 of them, don't make the cut for what is his new vision, which makes sense, I guess, if you're trying to distance yourself from Trudeau, who at this point settled into being Canada's political version of those influencers who peaked on Vine or MySpace. But yeah, let's start with Mark Miller. Mark Miller was Trudeau's immigration minister. A pretty big deal, given that Canada's international reputation for being the nice, welcoming country everyone south of the border vaguely dreams of escaping to. Miller is out now, likely because Carney's betting on a fresher face to handle immigration. It's the kind of issue that's increasingly contentious even in Canada, which prides itself on somehow not being America while often quietly doing many of the exact same things as the United States. Same goes for Mark Holland, the former health minister who got yanked from his role, probably a sign that Carney is planning on changing course on healthcare, another area where Canadians like to think they're superior to the United States, even if it's becoming a tougher and tougher sell every year. Carney's cabinet cuts don't seem to just be about personal grudge or typical Liberal Party drama or anything like that. It seems that he's trying to send a message. Carney wants everyone, especially voters, to understand that Trudeau's long, drawn out era is officially over. No flashy socks, no forced sincerity or endless photo ops. Carney is trimming down Trudeau's bloated 38 member cabinet into something leaner, smaller, and hopefully for him more efficient. In politics, smaller cabinets typically means less internal infighting, fewer people accidentally contradicting each other on TV and throughout their policy, and a simpler way of communicating a clear vision. It's like Carney thinks that Trudeau's jumbo sized cabinet was basically like a Netflix writer's room, way too crowded, chaotic, and ultimately resulting in something that nobody was really proud of. And if we're speaking about strategic moves, the reshuffling isn't random. If you look at Stephen Guilbeault, for example, he's moving around portfolios, presumably to tackle whatever the latest international issue is currently freaking everyone out. The radical of the Liberal Party. Yeah, just pathetic. But anyways, Carney is basically rearranging the pieces on the board to make it obviously that he's different from Trudeau and ready to confront Canada's immediate challenges head on: climate, immigration, healthcare, the economy, whatever it is. But again, let's be real. This is also just about the election. Carney isn't dumb. He knows the Liberals have been treading water for years. If he's going to compete seriously in the next federal election, especially against this Conservative Party that has become increasingly politically aggressive, he's going to have to demonstrate that he's willing to make bold changes. And I feel like swapping out ministers, cutting cabinet positions, and putting new faces in front of voters, it really sends the message loud and clear. Hey, we know things sucked before, but look, now we've changed. We're leaner. We're different enough that maybe you'll forget who was running things a few days ago. So yeah, Carney is cleaning house. No house father, no Mark Miller. So we got rid of two Zionists, which is a good thing. So yeah, a bunch of Trudeau's crew is still in, but a lot of key figures are out. And yeah, this new political landscape, Canada is officially getting what seems to be a facelift, and whether it actually helps Carney beat the Conservatives or just pisses off more old school liberals remains to be seen. But it's clear that Carney is ready to roll the dice. And yeah, like I said, Carney officially running this show in Canada now, and he's already been doing a whole lot of the management and consulting thing from the very start, which sees him downsizing Trudeau's bloated cabinet from 37 to just 24 cabinet ministers, including himself. It makes a lot of sense for his portfolio. A new CEO shows up at a struggling company and immediately fires half the staff to prove that he's serious about changing things. one of the cuts is very much seemingly, it seems to be quite questionable. There is now apparently no minister specifically dedicated to disability issues anymore. Under Trudeau, there was the Minister of Diversity, Inclusion, and Persons with Disabilities, a very Canadian sounding position that's either genuinely progressive or just liberal branding, depending on your cynicism level. But again, yeah, in the process, disability advocacy seems to have been absorbed into other portfolios and honestly, possibly lost entirely to the bureaucratic reshuffling. And to be fair, Carney's cabinet right now is basically a temporary gig, meaning that all of this is very provisional and the long term game plan is still very much unclear. Disability issues are an extremely important thing. And the issue is going to resurface later in a very much more meaningful way, whether they like it or not. They might try to keep it buried because honestly, that's how Canadian politics on the center right goes. And so they'll quietly drop the issue without anyone noticing, or possibly just like pertain to those types of voters for the political cachet of certain figures when they need a boost and when they need to appear more progressive. So either way, Carney clearly wants voters to think he's decisive and different. Shrinking the cabinet is his big gesture, but I feel like questions remain whether it's actually going to be efficient or just austerity cosplayed as progressive, wrapped in that liberal packaging. So yeah, let's see what we get.